So I guess Somalia is getting Starlink now, which will obviously improve their internet access. And in response to this, the conservative influencer Matt Walsh said, "No, dear God, please no. How dare African people pursue economic development?" He says that he's scared this will allow Somalia to spread bad ideas to America, which will make us more shittier. As if Somalia isn't poor because they were pillaged by Western colonial powers for years, who literally split the country up into 5 different clans in order to divide the people and keep them from uniting against the Western colonizers pillaging all of their resources. And that's still essentially the case today. Why do you think Joe Biden redeployed hundreds of troops to Somalia, Mr. Walsh? Why do you think he ramped up drone strikes and bombings? Today it works a little different, but Somalia's economy is still controlled by what we would call a comprador class, a group of wealthy elites who are technically Somali but are often headquartered in places like London. And ultimately they're controlled and funded by the Western banking system and act in their benefit, which is why they're also propped up by imperialist governmental institutions like USAID. And these institutions don't funnel money into things like industrialization that would improve the whole of the Somali economy. Instead, investing in things like real estate speculation, which makes money out of nothing by charging people rent and gambling with the land. The only kind of investment they receive is that which serves the elite. And maybe that's why Matt Walsh is scared of Somalia modernizing and getting the internet. Because then people will find out that the Western colonial powers have been keeping them poor for hundreds of years. And he won't get to go on saying that they're poor because of their bad ideas compared to our good ideas. We're going to read a book. This is historical illiteracy right here.
Hi lovelies, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Belinda Verse or Belly Dirt channel. Don't forget to please subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so that anytime I upload videos, you will be the first person to be notified. To my returning subscribers, to those people that share my videos, leave commentaries, and educate each and every one of us, you guys are the real MVP. So lovelies, I'm gonna be your today's host, and I have so many statistics to put up here, and we're gonna come out to talk about it. Alright lovelies, let's dive into today's video.
Sign me off, Google. I don't want to be on this bitch-ass white fucking capitalistic billionaire-run fucking monopoly of an internet anymore. I want to be on the African internet. Put me on the African internet. I'll pay however much. Just put me on the African internet.
Google. I don't know if it's good or bad news for you, but did you guys hear about Africa's new internet? The African Continental internet? Yes, Africa has developed their own internet service, and they are no longer going through Silicon Valley. So, what do you think is going to happen next? Leave your comments below. 1.4 billion users lost instantly. Yep, instantly. That's how easy it is.
To those in Africa, in the Middle East, in Asia and in South America, please hear this. We were told stories. We were raised in shadows. We were born into the same machinery that took from you. We were told that you were dangerous, that you were backward, and that you needed saving. And while bombs fell on your cities, screens in our homes told us it was justice. We didn't know. Not because the truth was absent, but because the truth was buried. Layer upon layer of propaganda, schooling, news feeds, speeches, until even compassion was trained to look the other way. We were not the architects. We were not the generals. We were not the corporations that carved your land and drained your rivers. But we, the ordinary people of the West, were made to believe it was for freedom, for safety, and for progress. But we see now, and we say this, it was never our will. It was never the will of the majority. We were lied to, manipulated, and enlisted in an empire without our consent. The same empire that looted your lands, looted our minds. And together We are breaking the spell.
You won't believe what just happened. Africa has fully rebelled against Western tech giants. They've just launched something called the Continental Internet Exchange, and it's kind of genius. Picture this, instead of sending their data all the way to Europe or the US, it now stays inside of African borders. It's faster, cheaper, and it's safer. Suddenly Google and the West are freaking out, and I can't blame them. Here's the kicker. Basically, they made a African Union-backed digital highway. No new internet protocol, just infrastructure. Fiber cables, data centers, local exchange points. The internet traffic stays local, meaning that it's faster and bandwidth costs are plummeting. And get this, just within 3 days of going live on September 1st, over 200 million African users switched to services riding this new network. That is an insane adoption speed. Now think about what this means for generations. Africa's been sending billions to foreign platforms. Google, AWS, Microsoft. But with this move, local developers get a real shot to build their own apps, search engines, cloud platforms, custom fit for 2,000 plus African languages and cultures. Big tech's dominance is now suddenly shaky. But you might be wondering, is this some isolationist stunt? Nope, because they still link to the global internet. But now they've got autonomy. It's about data sovereignty, not isolation. With full continental coverage aimed by 2027, the momentum is just starting. This isn't just new tech infrastructure, it's a power play. Speeding content, cutting costs, protecting privacy, empowering local talent. There's going to be challenges getting rural areas connected, dealing with the spicy politics in Africa, and coordinating all the funding. The upside is immense for everyday Africans. With a median age under 25 and a booming digital economy, this could add up to 180 billion to Africa's total GDP. That's not a small change. So yeah, Africa just pulled off a power move on the global stage. Data staying home, innovation, the entire map of tech influence has now shifted. And that's why
this emergency for technology to advance and switcheroo of all this technology going on fits right into the system of what this world is headed for. Now, the principal just had a full dinner at the White House for all the U.S. tech leaders and giants in the world. Mark Zuckerberg was right on the side of him, looking goofy like he do. You had Bill Gates, a bunch of world leaders who run our tech. Okay. This happened on Thursday, September the 4th, and it was in the evening. What was interesting is it was 33 Silicon Valley leaders. Key word, key number, 33. Those who don't know, those who get it. What they calling it was an AI education summit. What's all of this education about? A lot of weird stuff with Silicon Valley. Just like that man, he having a whole situationship, a whole meeting teaching about the AC. What is going on with all this? Now y'all having a whole AI summit and all this stuff. It's a lot of weird stuff going on, y'all. That wasn't it for me. What was it for me was that Mr. Bill Gates, he started talking about vaccines. And then he talked about gene editing. Now, you have to understand, with gene editing, the only thing that comes to my head is erasing. I can't go down here. Let me finish telling y'all what the man said. I can't. Those who know where I was going with that, you know. He talked about how gene editing and vaccine and how there was a goal to basically to make an innovation to the next level of curing diseases and things of that nature. So we have to understand that that's the same thing Elante Dante Reeves was talking about, the same stuff, and that's why he created Neuralink to help people with their life and with health. Now, he's saying to take the goal for America for more innovation. Now, it ain't that much innovation in the world. I can't even go where I want to go with this. Meanwhile, y'all, Africa decided they gonna create their own internet. 1.4 billion of the communities in Africa, they just went offline from Google. And why you say, this is very interesting, Africa has launched their own internet. The continent is called the Continental Internet Exchange. Now, the reason why everybody's up in arms, and I just thought this was so strange, is because It's basically bypassing Western control. Catch it. It is a threat to our digital infrastructure that basically powers the modern economy. So now you have Africa. The Bible is true. The last will be first and the first shall be last. That's all I'm going to say. Basically, the infrastructure of Google, what this means is it literally rivals the Western system. I'm going to tell you how. They're saying that the software is very mature and that not only that, it's revolutionary. And why do you say? Because number one, it's competing with its entire Google ecosystem. They built their own email system, iCloud per se, storage, and video platform. They even taking a coin. They even got their own advertising network. And this is basically every service that Google has to offer. So this is definitely revolutionary, and we see a split off of how the world is kind of splitting off, and the fall of Babylon is coming into fruition, and we have to understand what has to rise to power. So these things has to happen. There has to be some type of divide to bring together. If you know what I'm saying, you get it. Now Babylon is getting ready to fall. It's already falling, but not only that, there's other things that has to arise to the occasion. There's things that has to come on the scene. There has to be one world. Y'all know the rest, okay? I can't say no more because I want to say a lot about this. It makes me giggle. It makes me laugh on the inside of what we're seeing taking place and what's happening. But, child. So that's why they was sitting up there having that meeting in that big old house like that. I was like, what is going on? Why is they having this meeting? I see why y'all having that meeting. Y'all had to have that meeting. They conspiring. I'm done.
All right. I'm going to make this really brief. Within the last year, even if you didn't see it on my content, if you care, you can go back and look. I publicly declared that I was severing all ties with Bluegle because I had to. And I do not use any Bluegle products. I won't even send an email to a Bluegle account because it's not me being particular. Like, I gotta stick to my moral. Like, I don't want my information or anything I'm talking about or my own address or anything to go to those servers, which, again, I know there's no like man in the machine that's like, watching what I'm doing. But with the AI, they compile all that data, and like, it does matter, and you need to really understand that. And I also just want to say, like, you've been hearing forever now all these companies saying they had a breach, and I've overheard people saying recently that Bluegle said that. There won't no breach. They've been giving your shit away. Okay, like, please, I can't believe anybody would even fall for this. But anyway, moving on. That's not even what I'm here to talk about. So in Africa, the numbers vary. They'll say 1.4 billion, 1.8, either way, over a billion, maybe 2 billion people have logged out of Bluegle. They made their own system. Bluegle was there. They had some, they were working with them. They had some agreements over a period of years. They paid them, they paid them some money. But just naturally, that there was I think they were there for a 5-year time period, and then that ended, and they said, we're going to do our own thing. Like, you're making like $30 billion from searches and all these people's data. That's free money for you, and you're, what are you doing for us? And I love that so much about how they think and how they treat the people. So if I have time, I'm going to show you a video. It's kind of dry, but it explains everything. And then if there's time, and if you care, I will attach another clip after that. It's really neat. Back in 2020, this is a video from 2023 showing the student there in Africa that created this new system they're using. Oh, sorry, I just thought of this. I've said nothing that's not true. I've said nothing, I'm just telling the truth. So if it's a problem, if somebody wants to try to threaten me, I'm sorry, you have not met me. I'm scared of nothing but eye contact. And like legally, procedurally, elemental P, I don't know all the word. You have nothing, okay? Because I've done nothing. I'm just telling the truth. And so, and not in a way of defamation, of slander. So I'm not even telling you. If you want to try to make an issue for me, thank you. Like I will feel special. I will buy. I will buy a suit because you will not even be able to do anything with me because I'm gonna feel so like. I'll even let you. I'm not saying I'll let you pick the suit, but I want you to pick the style, like the fabric, the material, and I will. Because at this point, and then there's people that have literally come to me who told me secrets, or they think I'm psychic. This stuff is not even hard to see. Anyway.
While you were scrolling through your phone this morning, something happened that will completely change how 1.4 billion people access the internet. Africa just flipped the switch on its own internet infrastructure, and Google is about to face the biggest threat to its dominance since the company was founded. What we call the internet is actually a collection of networks controlled by a handful of Western companies. And for the past 2 decades, Africa has been forced to play by their rules. Every search, every click, every piece of data has had to travel through servers owned by Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. But that just changed forever. African Union officially launched the Continental Internet Exchange, and it's not just another internet service provider. This is a complete parallel internet infrastructure that bypasses Western controlled systems entirely. Think of it like this. Imagine if Africa decided to build its own highway system instead of paying tolls to use roads owned by foreign companies. That's exactly what just happened, except instead of highways, we're talking about the digital infrastructure that powers the modern economy. Here's what most people don't understand about how the internet actually works. When someone in Lagos, Nigeria wants to search for something on Google, that request doesn't go directly to Google's servers. It travels through a complex network of undersea cables, data centers, and exchange points, most of which are owned and controlled by Western companies. This means that African internet traffic often has to travel thousands of miles to servers in Europe or North America before coming back to Africa. It's like sending a letter to your neighbor by mailing it to another continent first. This system has created 3 massive problems that have held back Africa's digital development for decades. First, it's incredibly expensive. African countries pay some of the highest internet costs in the world because they're essentially paying rent to use someone else's infrastructure. Second, it's slow and unreliable because data has to travel such long distances. And third, it gives Western companies unprecedented control over African digital communications and data. But here's where it gets really interesting. The Continental Internet Exchange isn't just solving these problems, it's completely rewriting the rules of how the internet works. Instead of routing traffic through Western-controlled systems, African internet traffic now stays within Africa. They've built a network of data centers, fiber optic cables, and exchange points that span the entire continent. When someone in Kenya wants to access a website hosted in South Africa,
Alright, white Americans have this to say about Africans' new internet and Somalia getting Starlink. The reaction we are seeing, especially from certain conservative voices like Matt Washington, is telling. Somalia, a country that has endured decades of poverty, instability, and external manipulation, is finally getting improved internet infrastructure through Starlink. At the same time, Africa is advancing plans for its own continental internet framework, a massive step toward digital sovereignty. And instead of welcoming this, we hear panic. No, dear God, please no. Don't let them get internet. Don't let them spread bad ideas. That is the fear. But why? Let's unpack it. The first thing to understand is that this fear doesn't come from nowhere. It's rooted in centuries of colonial narratives about Africa. The West has always painted Africa as backward, incapable, helpless. They want people to believe that Africans are poor because of bad ideas, corruption, or cultural flus. What they don't want to acknowledge is that Africa was systematically looted. Somalia in particular was caved up by colonial powers, Italy, Britain, France, and broken into fragments. That is where the so-called Five Clans division comes from. Divide and rule. It was deliberate. Keep the people fragmented, keep them weak, and you can extract resources while selling them in illusion of independence. Fast forward to today, Somalia's poverty is not a natural condition, it's a manufactured one. You can see it in how Western governments still treat the region. Joe Biden redeployed troops there. The US drone war continues in Somalia, bombing villages and creating circles of instability. And when Western institutions like USAID or the IMF get involved, they don't fund things like industrialization, manufacturing, or infrastructure for the masses. No, they pour money into real estate speculation, land deals, or projects that enrich a cobrado class, elites who serve Western banking interests, not the Somalia people. Now, imagine what happens if Somalia and Africa more broadly gain genuine access to modern technology, high-speed internet, independent digital networks, and platforms not filtered through Silicon Valley. That changes everything. The youth, who make up the majority of Africa's population, would suddenly have the same access to knowledge, tools, and communication network as anyone else in the planet. They could bypass the Western gatekeepers. They could tell their own stories, share their own realities, and organize on their own terms. And this is where the panic from people like Matt Washington comes in. If Africans have the internet, the independence, the West loses control of narrative. No longer can America conservative point to Somalia and say, see, this is what happens when you have bad culture or bad ideas, because the people in Somalia will be online, directly explaining their situation, their history, and their reality. They will be talking about colonialism, imperialism, and how Western powers continue to exploit Africa. And Western audience, particularly younger generations, will hear it unfiltered. Think about how the media works now. The average American doesn't hear about Somalia unless it's tied to terrorism, pirates, or feminine. But with Starlink and a continental African internet, Somalians could live stream their daily lives, their markets, their businesses, their schools. People will see a completely different picture of Africa, not a place of permanent suffering, but a place of resilience and innovation. That scares the Western establishment. There is also an economic dimension. The African continental internet means Africa is no longer fully dependent on Silicon Valley companies like Google, Facebook, and Twitter. Imagine 1.4 billion users suddenly routined through African-owned infrastructure, African platforms, African control server. That is not just symbolic, that is real money, real data, and real power leaving Western monopolies. For companies like Google, Meta, and Amazon, losing that market would be devastating. And for Western government, it would mean losing surveillance's control over a whole continent. Let's be honest, the internet is power. Whoever controls the flow of information controls minds, markets, and politics for decades. The US has controlled the global internet backbone. African countries have had to rely on Western-owned undersea cables, Western satellites, and Western platforms. But that dependency is cracking. Starlink is coming to Somalia is one step. Africa building its own continental internet is another. Together, they represent a potential breakaway from Western dominance. And you know who notices that? The very people like Matt Walsh who claim to defend Western civilization. He framed it as fear of bad ideas spreading from Africa to America. But let's decode that. The ideas he's talking about hasn't terrorism or violence. He's talking about Pan-Africanism, about self-determination, about socialism or alternative economic models that challenge neoliberal capitalism. He's talking about Africans pointing to West's hypocrisy and demanding repatriation, justice, and independence. Those are the bad ideas, bad for empire, not for original people. Let's pause here and think about the irony. The West has flooded Africa with its own bad ideas for centuries. Slavery, colonialism, capitalism, religious domination, military coups, neoliberal authenticity. They are exported every destructive ideology they could muster, and yet the moment Africans start using the internet to push back, suddenly conservatives cry that they don't want bad ideas imported from Somalia. That is the historical illiteracy at its peak. Now, some will say, well, Africa is still unstable, still corrupt, still dependent. And yes, those problems exist. But again, why do they exist? Because instability serves Western interests. Corruption is not an African invention, it's a Western export. During colonialism, Europeans ruled by bribing chiefs, appointing collaborators, and rewarding those who betrayed their people. After independence, they propped up dictators who gave them cheap oil, gold, and land. And today, they still funnel money through NGOs and comprador elites who keep economies tied to foreign capital. Somalia is not unique in this. It's the blueprint across the continent. So when someone like Matt Walsh says, "No, dear God, don't give Somalia internet," what he's really saying is, "No, dear God, don't give Africans the tools to expose us." Because once the truth is out, Western excuses collapse. Let's also consider the youth angle more deeply. Africa has the youngest population in the world. The median age is under 20. That is a massive demographic wave. With internet access, that wave turns into a movement. Young Africans are already innovating in tech, finance, and culture. They are creating apps, music, films, and movements that spread globally. TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter are already filled with African voices gaining millions of followers. But if Africa built its own platforms, its own algorithms, and its own servers, the balance shifts even further. Africans won't just be content creators for Western platforms, they will own their platform themselves. That is revolutionary, and again, that is why there is fear. Now, let's zoom in on Somalia specifically. For decades, it's been treated as a failed state, no central government, endless conflicts, foreign interventions. But even within that chaos, Somalis have built one of the most resilient informal economies in the world. They have thriving money transfer systems like Haolin. They have a strong diaspora sending billions in remittances. They have entrepreneurial network that stretches across continents. With internet access, those networks only get stronger. Imagine Somalis entrepreneurs connected to global market directly without Western middlemen. That is the future Starlink hints at it. But of course, it won't be easy. There will be pushback. Western governments will pressure African states to keep their internet tied to Silicon Valley. They will use sensations, IMF loans, and aid packages as leverage. They will warn about cybersecurity risks or terrorist network. They will try to scare Africans into staying independent. But the monumental is shifting. Countries like Ethiopia, Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa are already investing in tech hubs and data centers. Somalia is joining that wave with Starlink is symbolic. Even the so-called wicked state can plug into the digital revolution. And here's where we should bring it back to Matt Walsh and his fear-mongering. When he says he doesn't want Somalia to spread bad ideas to America, what he's really revealing is the insecurity of the American right. They see their own system cracking. Inequality, political division, climate disasters, economic stagnation, and they fear that when Americans look abroad, to Africa, to Asia, to Latin America, they will see alternatives. They will see people rising despite centuries of oppression. They will see models of resilience that put America's greatness to shame. That is the nightmare, not that Somalia spreads bad ideas, but that it spreads good ones, ideas of unity, sovereignty, and resistance. So let's end on this note. The panic over Somalia getting Starlink and Africa building its own internet is not about technology, it's about power. It's about who controls the future. For too long, the West controlled Africans' narrative, Africans' resources, and Africans' connectivity. That is changing, slowly, painfully, but surely. And the louder the panic gets, the more you know the change is real.
And if you watch up to this extent, don't forget to please leave me your own thought in the comment section of what you think of this video. And please do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying and harassment. We are just here for educational and informative purposes. So lovelies, why not just share your thought? Subscribe to this channel if you're yet to do that, and I will see you lovelies when I upload the next one.